Hey everybody, this is Mike Arnzen, and you are listening to 6 minutes and 66 seconds. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. My father, Andrew, or Andy Arnzen, passed away earlier this week after suffering from a stroke almost a decade ago. He finally succumbed to all sorts of problems. I was told possibly the norovirus. But I wanted to give a little tribute to him by playing some of his music in today's podcast. And this is one of his more funkier songs. He actually did a lot of weird, abstract things. He told me once that he used to play session for Motown recording artists in New York. He played the guitar for their songs, uncredited. And he was in a band called the Rhythm Jesters. But he also just made weird recordings of himself. He would write songs with lyrics that were like dark poetry, and he like sampled things like an interview with Charles Manson from the television set. He had the wherewithal to record that on a tape player, like a cassette player, and then mix it in with his guitar strumming and his weirdness, and it was really bizarre. And I grew up listening to that stuff, and I don't think I ever would have done things like become a poet or made my own audio spoken word CD called Audiovile, which you can find online, or buy from Raw Dog Screaming Press, who released it on a CD maybe 10 years ago. My dad was my biggest fan. We used to talk on the phone all the time. Like when he first heard my CD, he said, "It sounds like you're having too much fun," as if that were a bad thing. He was darker than me, and I'm pretty dark, as a lot of you know. But I like to have fun with what I do. And maybe that was something I picked up from him. I remember when we were kids, he tried to teach me how to play tennis, and the man must have had an outstanding amount of patience to do that. I also remember him like hitting balls to me with a beer bottle in his hand, things like that. We used to go to the beach and hang out. He was always just a laid-back, fun-loving guy. He had his dark side, his addictions, his problems. My parents were divorced when I was around 12. I don't think my mom dug that music scene that he was in. But I did, and I loved my dad, and I'm going to miss talking to that man, hearing what he had to say about the weird things that I wrote. A long time ago, I published an essay called What Corrupted Me? And I was planning to read it to you today on the podcast, but I think it would take me longer than the 3 minutes that are left in this episode. I'll paraphrase some of it for you, because what I talk about in that essay is my father taking me to horror movies in the late 1970s. He told me the story once that he and my mom started, their first date, I think, at the movies anyway, was Psycho by Hitchcock. And he told me that he went to the matinees alone just so he could, not be afraid with her being there with him later that night when they went to the real date. So he went to the matinees, to kind of preview and experience the fear for himself so he could keep his cool on the date. And I thought that was kind of hilarious. I also remember him and my uncle talking about Night of the Living Dead around the kitchen table once, and how, freaky that movie was and how much they loved it. And things like that inspired me to want to know more about the genre. And the fact of the matter is, he took me to a lot of those horror movies, like The Exorcist, when I was growing up. And I tell the story a lot. He used to take me to R-rated movies that my mom didn't want to go with him to see when I was way underage. The R rating, children under 17 require an accompanying parent or adult guardian. He took that literally and would bring me with him to these movies. And I think my mom assumed that he was taking me to see some Disney flicks or something, but really, he was taking me to see some creepy movies. And whenever there was a sex scene or a violent, gory scene, his hands would cover my eyes. And he wouldn't take them off until the scene was over. So like 1 second I'm seeing somebody walk down the stairs and her robe parts and suddenly there's like going to be a breast or something exposed. His hand would cover my eyes and I would just like have to imagine what's happening as I hear people around me in the darkness in the theater screaming or breathing heavy or reacting to violence and sexuality. And then he would remove his hand and maybe there would be like a dead body in a pool of blood at the bottom of the stairway, maybe a half-naked woman or something like that. And I'd have to put the pieces together and figure out what the heck just happened. And I surmise that this made me be the creative writer that I am today. I love my dad, and I wish I could play some more music for you, but we're out of time, and I just wanted to say goodbye to him and play some of his songs as a tribute. Next week, I'll return to answering some of your listener questions, and I'll have a lot more to talk about, some surprising happy news too. If you like some of the music you've been hearing in the background, or you want to learn more about the dark and strange and bizarro side of my father's music, go to andyarnzen.bandcamp.com. And if you are so moved by this episode, donations in his honor to stroke.org, which is the American Stroke Association, would mean a lot to me. Thanks, everybody.